All right. All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. My name is Heather Young. I am the publicity coordinator for the Oregon Area Historical Society. I've been with the society for 3 years. And I recently am the board president. So that's fun. And then joining me tonight is Dixie Brown. She is our museum coordinator. She's also been with the museum. Well, she's been museum coordinator for 3 years, but she's been with the museum for longer. So Dixie and I are here to introduce you to just an introduction to genealogy. We're gonna break it down into like 2 sections. Like, I'm gonna talk about how DNA helps you track down your relatives and your ancestry, and how easy it is to actually find your brick walls and break past them. And then Dixie's gonna talk about the long way to go around brick walls. So I don't know about you guys, but I learned about DNA way back in high school. And like, we studied it. I am 44 years old. I still don't know how to say that word. So it's DNA. I'm not gonna try. So DNA, it carries genetic instruction for the development and functioning of, and growth and reproduction of all organisms and many viruses. But when it comes to understanding your background, DNA it provides clues, like your genetic makeup, like German, French, like it's specific. It breaks down your specific breakdown of where your people came from, because it looks at other DNA numbers that are the same as yours, and it can creepily pinpoint where your people came from, where you came from. So in doing DNA, I back up. I have been working on my family history. I've been the family genealogist since high school, so 20 some odd years ago. My family all knows that I'm the history buff. I'm the one that if they have a question, I'm the one they come to. So it's automatic, like, it's fabulous that I work at a museum. So since high school, I started looking at my background, trying to figure out, asking my grandparents, like, where did we come from? For some reason, they didn't like talking about our past, like our family history. I don't know what it was about that generation, but like my grandma, my mom's mom, did not like talking about ancestors. I don't know. So everything that I've learned has been stuff that I've dug up, and there's been a lot of digging. Like I said, I've been doing this for 20 years. So I knew my great-grandma was German. She looked German. She had the German hair. She had the German derriere. I'm German too. So I knew she was from Germany. I just didn't know where in Germany. In college, I took an English 101 class, and one of our research papers was to look at our names, our first, middle, and last name, and break it down and figure out what each part of our name means. So my maiden name was Heather Leslie Trevora. And Heather was a blooming plant in the lowlands. And Leslie is just another lowlands word. But I didn't know what Trevora meant. I could not find anything on Trevoras at all. So fast forward to maybe 10 years ago, I did a 23andMe DNA thing. And it's taken a couple of years for them to collect enough data to figure out where my genetic makeup comes from. And we found out that my father's family is from Cornwall, England, which makes so much sense now thinking about what my great-grandfather did for a living and what all the family did up in Pennsylvania. They were miners. They were coal miners. And Cornish people are deep hole miners. The UP was settled by Cornish people. They mined for copper up there. Mineral Point, if you go to Pendarvis, they talk about the Cornish people there. They all did lead and other minerals out there. And in Pennsylvania, it's all coal mining. And that's where my family comes from. And then my grandmother, my great-grandmother, who I couldn't figure out where she came from, comes from Baden-Württemberg, Germany. And come to find out, like my father's mother's side is also German too. So it's fun to see where a lot of your people have come from. And now because of the DNA and knowing that my grandfather's family came from Cornwall, I've traced them back to the 1500s now. So, and they were really original with all the names. Richards, Johns, Henrys, Richard, John, Richard, John, all of them. Very original with names. But there's my great-grandma Strebe. She unfortunately died when I was little, and I couldn't find the picture that I wanted to share of the 4 generations of us. But that's her with baby me. So that's my German grandma. She's 2nd generation U.S. Her father was born in Indiana, and her grandfather was born in Germany. And then my great-grandfather's family here was, I found him. He was Richard. But yeah, he was born in Cornwall. And this just shows you a little bit of the background that you can find on Ancestry.com when people have helped you research a little bit more about people. Let me see. Oh, one fun, cool thing about DNA is that I was able to reconnect with an aunt, my mom's half-sister, who I'd lost touch with maybe 30 years ago. I don't even remember the last time I saw her. She reached out through Ancestry.com because we shared genetic makeup and said that we were second cousins, and that she was my aunt, that she was my half aunt, and we've been in contact ever since. I was back home in Florida. I grew up in Florida. I was back home in March of last year and got to see her and another cousin, and we went through our old family homesteads. And that was just really neat. And it means a lot to me that because of the genealogy and because of DNA, I was able to reconnect with her because I'd lost track of her since my grandfather passed away. And I've also connected with a whole bunch of other cousins who have shared a lot more of information. But yeah, so I'll let Dixie talk real quick, and then I'll talk more.
So how many here have worked on their family genealogy? Everybody? Anybody come across a brick wall? Okay.
Just getting started, kind of a brick wall. Picking up
Just trying to figure out everything.
what to do, right?
Yeah. Well, I've had 2 brick walls, at least 2 brick walls on my family tree. One that I found after 33 years, and one I haven't found in over 40 years. My first brick wall was my great-grandmother on my father's paternal side, and her name was Olena Olsen, which is a problem because it's such a common name. So if you go to search Olena Olsen from Norway, it's just gonna just have tons, yeah. And we didn't know exactly what year she came or what year she was born or anything like that. I was in my 20s when I asked my dad about writing a family story. And then I teasingly said to him, you know, are there any skeletons in the closet? And he looked at me and he said, yeah, right from the beginning. He then told me that his dad, Elmer, never knew who his father was. And he told me that Elmer's mother, Olena, came from Norway by herself when she was like 18 and lived with the Jacobus family as a servant when she first came here. And naturally, there was a lot of rumors within the family. One time, he mentioned one time he was at a fair And someone pointed to his dad and said, "Who's that guy?" And my dad said, "Well, that's my dad, Elmer Peterson." And the guy said, "Well, I always thought he was a Vonnegut." So my dad was like floored. He was like 10 years old at the time. And he didn't know that there was any mystery about my dad, his dad's dad. And then my uncle told his kids that we were Native American, that he was a Native American, because there were Native Americans in that area of Wisconsin where my great-grandmother lived. Well, you know, all these things, I discounted the Vonnegut theory because I looked at the Vonnegut family and they never came to America till like 5 years after my grandfather was born. The Native American theory, when I shared my DNA, nothing came up for being a Native American. So I did find that when Elmer was about 6 months old, Olena married Lars Peterson, and they had many more children, 18 to be exact. Yeah, I know. I would find her on censuses where her ages varied. You know, you'd look at one census and it would say she was born in February of 1862 and an age, but then 10 years later it wouldn't match up with the age that she was, you know, at 38. But I thought I hit it really big when I found her death certificate, which stated she was born February 23rd, 1861, and that she was 60 years old, and it was signed by one of her sons. So I thought, well, this has to be correct, right? Well, it wasn't. It turns out she was born, and I found this out later, Olena Olsdottir Shabakin. I'm just going to show you a picture here. Yeah. Let's see. And she was actually born on February 3rd, 1865. And then we eventually found out that she was 3 months pregnant when she traveled to America in March of 1886. I happen to have a match on MyHeritage, which is another really good source for genealogy. Turned out to be my third cousin. So his great-grandmother, Kari, was my great-grandmother's sister. And then we found out there was many other siblings. A cousin of mine had already known about this family, but I could not let go of that death certificate. I kept thinking, no, it can't be her. It's 4 years of difference in age, you know. So, but it did turn out that she is the right family, because I've actually had DNA to like one of her sister's great-grandchildren. And we've also been, my third cousin has hosted us twice in Norway. The first time they took us to all of the family farms. This is the farm that Olena was, where she was born. It was called the Shobakan Farm. And then they also moved to Lærdal and then to Bergen. It was very important to them that we walked in my ancestors' footprints, so it was really cool. We found all the family farms, all that. So there was still the question of who was Elmer's father. Well, there was a baptism record on microfilm, which stated that his father was a T. Torkelson, that he was still in Norway. But we didn't really know there was always a discrepancy of if he was born in 1885 or 1886. And it was microfilms and kind of the same names. You know, it's not like Olena Olsen and Elmer Peterson were really, in Vernon County, they were pretty common names. So, but anyway, at some point, I had a DNA match to a woman in Norway who it showed was a first cousin once removed, which means it would be my dad's first cousin. So that meant that they shared a grandparent, which is who I was looking for. And I also had a match with two other gentlemen that were actually related to this woman. And I looked at all their trees, and they had one common ancestor named Thomas Angel Brown from Bergen. And one of the gentlemen sent me his picture, and there's really no doubt that he looks so much like our family. His ancestors came from France, I found out through Ancestry, and the name was originally Brion. So his father owned a bakery in Bergen where Olena worked, and I found this out through my cousin. She had worked at another bakery previously and had another son whom she left in Norway with her father and sister. that's a whole nother story. My cousin told me in those days that if she would have tried to come to the U.S. Unmarried with a child, that they would have sent her back to Norway. So I'm not sure, we're not, none of us are ever sure why she came, but we think perhaps that the Lars Peterson that she married sent for her to be his wife, possibly. He was like 17 years older than her and a bachelor, and they kind of grew up across the fjord from each other, so perhaps maybe they struck a deal. When you go on a journey to find your ancestors, you must be prepared for surprises. And we can't be judgmental because we can't know what those people went through, I did find that Olena was listed on a pauper's list in Bergen, and I've been told that the family was very poor once they moved there. And I was told that she, through her grandchildren, that she was a wonderful mother and a great baker, and that's the most important thing to me. And 18 children, you gotta be a little strong for that. Let's see. That is Thomas Angel Brown. So my second brick wall is over 40 years old and still unsolved, even though I've exhausted like many avenues. It started when we sent, excuse me, for our great-great-grandfather Frank Spears' Civil War record, because we knew where he was buried in Vernon County. We found out he was born in Dane County, which we thought was really odd because nobody had ever heard that he was born in Dane County. So I was at the library one day, and there was a Dane County book, and I think you still have it, that blue book. And I thought, well, I'm just going to look, and there was a great index in the back. So I looked up the last name, Spears, but I saw that in the book it said it was spelled different, S-P-E-E-R-S. But I found out that 3 brothers with the last name of Spears came from Troy, Ohio in 1842. They first settled in Greens Prairie and then moved to Primrose Township in Dane County, which I had never heard of. It said in the book that one of the wives was responsible for naming Primrose Township. And actually it's 15 miles west of Oregon over by Mount Vernon. Excuse me. So my brother and I met with the town clerk, and he gave us a book called The Primrose Story. And in it, we found the names of the 3 brothers. It was William, Edmund, and Robert, who came with their mother, who was only ever referred to as Grandmother Spears, so I still don't know her name, even though she died in 1854. I found an 1850 census book at the Historical Library in Madison, which was a really great resource place. It still is a great resource place. There's every county in the United States is in there, a book, or there's name books or, census you can still look up there too. But I looked at the whole census book for that area. Could only find one older lady who was 76 years old named Abigail Cruel, and living with a man with the last name of Patchen, who may have been related to the Spears, and his 1-year-old daughter. So I have no idea why she wouldn't show up on a census. So I found Edmund, William, and Robert on the 1850 census. So then we found out all of the wives' names, the children's names, and then Edmund turned out to be my great-great-great-grandfather. And all their names were spelled different on the census. One was S-P-E-E-R-S, one was S-P-E-I-R-S, and one was S-P-E-R-R-Y. I've looked at enough census that I have a theory that the census taker had a little drink at everyone's house. Well, I found them all on the 1840 census in Troy, Ohio, before they moved to Wisconsin, but I didn't find any mention in that area of their mother or father, and I thought perhaps the father had passed away in Ohio, so off my daughter Haley and I went to Ohio in summer of 1992. We never found a grave with his name, but we did find another brother, Isaac, who stayed in the Troy area, was married but had no children, and another brother, Samuel, who was also in the same area. And then we found out that Robert and Edmund married 2 sisters, Betsy and Rosina Nash. And we did find their parents' grave in Troy, so that was a plus. I also found a woman in California through Ancestry whose husband was related to the Nashes, and she led me on this informed me and proved that we were related to Francis Cook from the Mayflower. So, I mean, we have all this going back that far, too. So that was really exciting. We looked around all the Mount Vernon cemeteries, but never found any graves. After looking at census records, we found that Robert lived and was buried in Belleville. William was in Iowa County in a little cemetery near a village that was named Moscow. It's down by Blanchardville. And of course, we couldn't find Edmund's grave. And it took me another 15 years to find that one. I happened to send for his son Frank's marriage record, which showed he was married in Clark County, Colby. And I thought, well, why would someone in Vernon County travel all the way to Clark County back then to get married? And the lady he married was from Vernon County. So I thought, well, if I ever go to Colby, I'll check on the cemeteries. Well, one summer my husband had, he did road construction working on Highway 29. And the kids and I went to stay for a weekend, and Monday before we left, we thought, well, we'll go into Colby and see if there's a cemetery there. And it was really weird because I didn't even know where the cemetery was, and I happened to just take this one road, and here was a cemetery, and went to the back of the cemetery, found it in 5 minutes. And it was like Saint Find the Lost was with me or something. Let's see. So next we sent for Robert and Edmund's Civil War records. So you can send for Army records and, all the way back to, we have several Civil War records for my family. So Robert Spears' Civil War record had a handwritten family tree written by his wife Betsy, and on it said, Robert Spears, son of Samuel Spears, a Revolutionary War soldier. That was so exciting to find that. Oh, we have another name, another generation. So I thought we had something to go on, but, it just, even though I found several Samuel Spears that were Revolutionary War soldiers, I've never found anything, whether it be a census record, a will, town records from Massachusetts, Ohio, New York. I haven't found anything that ever connected him to any of his children to prove, oh, this is my Samuel. So it's been crazy. What made it harder was that before 1850, the census is only named the head of the household, and then it might have something like male children age 1 through 5, male children 10 through 20, and how many, just a hash mark. So there's no names of children, so it's really hard to connect someone if you can't find it that way. I thought I came close last summer. I thought for sure I found Samuel Spears because there was actually a guy named Lemuel Spears Jr., but he went by the name of Samuel. And it was in the area of New York, which was close to Rochester, where I found a news clipping that showed William, the oldest son, or one of the oldest brothers, and his sister had both got married on this day in Rochester. So I thought, okay, well, I pinpointed New York, and I knew that Rosina and Betsy, the wives, came from New York. And this Samuel had died in 1839, which fit with my story, and I thought, well, that's, he was a veteran of the War of 1812, though. And I thought, well, maybe Betsy made a mistake with the wrong war. Because I felt like Samuel, if he was in the Revolutionary War, he had to be pretty old, by the time he had the children. But I found that Samuel's will, and none of the children matched the names I was looking for. So now my newest thing is, I was telling Heather about this, that like New York and Massachusetts and Canada kind of had the different lines than they do now as far as where they were. So because one of the boys was born in New York, one in Massachusetts, one in Canada. At one point I thought, well, Robert being born in Canada in 1804, that's the same year that the Loyalists went to Canada to escape persecution, the British soldiers that were, and I thought, well, maybe he was a Loyalist. And then I thought, well, how would I feel if he was a Loyalist? But then I remembered I read a book about like many Scottish men joined the British because they had lost to a battle in Culloden so badly that they never wanted to fight the British because they knew this British was so strong that they would, always lose. So I thought, again, no judgment, right? I did find a list of Loyalists, and there's no Samuel. Let's see. So if you have anybody have an Ancestry account? No, or MyHeritage. You know, if you can even do just a month, as long as you call them before the month is up, you don't get charged. But if you forget to call them, you'll get charged like the $39 a month. But it's so worth it to go on Ancestry and search for people.
So that's how you got started on all this, is going through Ancestry?
Yep.
And then who do you write to get like the Civil War and the census reports? How did you get those?
Well, a lot of times if you have a person in your family, there'll be hints, and or you can just do a search for that person, and then you'll get a list of hints from census records and things like that, and then you can actually see it. You can actually see the full census record, so you don't have to send for any of that stuff.
Some people have already done the research and post it on Ancestry for you.
Yeah, there's so much.
You can see them on there.
And if someone else has looked, you know, for someone that you're looking for, that sometimes shows up too, or you might get information from what they found, but you have to be careful because you want to make sure that they have good. Thank you. So, but and even if you have someone on Ancestry, because I've had some on for years, you can go back to those people and they'll have hints. And just recently I found a death date for a great aunt who died when she was 4 years old. We never knew what the date was. And a death certificate for my great-great-grandfather who died of tuberculosis. We didn't know what he died of. And then my other great-grandfather's death date that we never knew before. So they put new records in there all the time. So it's good to go back and look, because there's new hints all the time too.
So you get, I know they'll say this is your second cousin, your fourth cousin, but then sometimes when you try to go into it, I'm blocked. You know, it's like.
Oh, because.
It depends.
Do they have their accounts blocked?
It depends on if they have their family tree public or not.
Public or not, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with Ancestry.com and Heritage.com?
MyHeritage.com, yeah. So there's the two that
Any
Mm-hmm.
are.
other websites you use?
FamilySearch.org.
Mm-hmm.
That's run through the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And they have a plethora of knowledge, and it's a really, really, really good starting spot. But do your research, because it's not always right.
Give it the name of it again?
FamilySearch.org.
Thank you.
Yeah, and like I said, the Historical Library Uptown is a great resource. They have a lot of, you can go into this one section where it's family names, like I found the Headley's book and the McClure book, and there's a Spears book, but I couldn't find Samuel on that either. But you know, sometimes you find a lot of information that's from the town records in those books that, you know, you know for sure that it's right, you know. So I've been able to build
field
mine.
trip coming up.
Right.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't even know, you know, so you just go to the Historical Society and ask for your family book or a name?
Well, you go up. I just went up in the stacks. There's like 5 stories of stacks, and some of them have
The library or the historical?
the historical library,
Yeah, the historical.
the one at the end of State Street. Yeah,
It's across from the Memorial Union.
yeah. But that was a good place for me when I first started. It was great, and I still go there at least once a year. So if you ever want to go along.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
So you guys jumped ahead a little bit to my next slide here. So where do you start your journey?
Oh, there we go.
The best thing to do is ask people, ask relatives. Like if you have relatives that you know that might know information, ask them, badger them. Sometimes you have to badger them. I didn't badger grandma enough.
Yeah.
I should have badgered her more. But the more you know, the easier it is to find them. If you have birth dates, death dates, marriage dates, siblings, parent information, it's easier to go because, like, my mom's mother's name was, her last name was Woods. Do you know how common that name is? My mom's maiden name was Yates, another very common name. You'd think with my maiden name, Travora, it would have been easier to find, but it wasn't. My husband, I'm having a hard time with my husband's family right now. His young, lots of youngs all over the place. So if you know locations, you know dates, it's a lot easier. Like if you have a starting spot, it's a lot easier to go from there. There's the list of the 3 places that we talked about: FamilySearch.org, Ancestry, and then MyHeritage.com. You can also come and research at the library. You guys have Ancestry here, right? Mm-hmm. So you can search there, and you can actually email yourself the information that you find, or take screenshots and put it in your email. It's easy. It's easy and free, but you have to do it through the library. You can do it on your computer and save it to your computer, but you have to do it through the library's account. And that's really easy to find if you guys want me to show you how to find that. Another thing that you can do is places where you know your family are from, check the historical societies. Like my family, my mom's family is all from Christmas, Florida. So I went to Christmas. We have all of the houses that the pioneers grew up in, that they built, have been moved to this area in Fort Christmas, where they built a fort, and it's all a big state park now that you can visit all of the ancestors' homes, and they have a plethora of knowledge in the barn with all of the family history on it. It's not all right. It's not all right. I have found mistakes, and I have updated them on some of them, but that's what you have to do. It's a big mystery. You have to prove stuff. It's not like when you find a family tree and you're like, oh, I'm done. No, you have to actually go through and go, yes, are these people actually my ancestors? Because there's a lot of arguments right now with in my family, on my Yates side, of the oldest relatives that I can find on anything. People say that James and Aggie are my great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, but then other families are like, they're not. It's never been documented. And just because they had a James, which is in my line, doesn't necessarily mean he's the same James, because the birth dates are a little off. Census records. Census records are your friends too. And those you can search on Ancestry.com. People put up a lot of things on Ancestry. I found yearbook pictures of my father that I've never seen before. Yeah. I'm like, I've never seen these pictures. This is fabulous. So yeah, but if you're local to Oregon, the Oregon Area Historical Society could probably help you. Even if you're not, we can help you too. We don't mind. But we have, like, if your family dates back here for a long time, chances are we have your family name in our family files. We have a lot of family files, like 3 filing cabinets full of family files. So chances are we have it, and if not, we can find it. So starting this year, new members and old members, we are offering 1 hour of free genealogy for you to work one-on-one with either me or Dixie, or both of us, if we're not busy. But yeah, it's free for that 1 hour one-on-one with you trying to find your family. And after that hour, if it takes longer, because 20 years I've been working on this. So if it takes longer than an hour, it's $15 for each additional hour. But yeah, the library is a really good source. Like Dixie said, they've got the Wisconsin book, the blue books here. They've got a lot of books down on that end, right? Yeah, down on the far end of up here for genealogy stuff. We've got a lot of stuff at the museum, but we can always look for stuff too. So yeah, questions, comments?
Family Bibles. I found an old family Bible,
yes,
and it had a lot of information that I had been looking for. I know.
Yep, that's another good.
other thing I wondered is, do you have any templates that, you know, you could send to relatives to update births and deaths and divorces and things like that? Do you know of a template site, or just so I can add to what my.
You can always Google them, like
Yeah, I think
Google's your friend a lot. I mean, I used to have a lot of that because we used to do it all on paper. I have binders
Me
upon
too. I have
binders
binders.
upon binders of,
Yeah.
I've got papers at least that thick
yeah,
Yes.
yep,
on just
Yep.
one side of it.
Right, me
yes,
too.
yeah. So, I mean, we used to do it all on paper. It's
Yeah,
all online now, but
I think
you can
there's
still,
templates.
yeah, you can still find templates online. I'm sure Ancestry probably has them. But
I
FamilySearch
have-
has some
Yeah.
that you can just download.
Yep.
I don't, and it just is like a generic family tree, and different versions of it, so.
There's
Perhaps.
also Family Tree Maker, which can be connected to your Ancestry account. And they have a thing you can click on and each person will have its own page, and you can just print them off with the information that you've already put in, so you don't have to like write everything in. So that's another way to do it too.
Oh, Ancestry.com is a paid site. I have a subscription.
So do I.
That's what my mommy gives me for Christmas every year.
That's nice.
That's a good idea.
It's useful. It's great. I use it all the time.
Do you want me to go over the library resources?
Yeah, that would be
Sure.
great.
Okay.
So Ancestry is a paid site. MyHeritage.com is somewhat free, a little bit. And FamilySearch.org is totally free. But it's a great starting spot, but just be wary of what you find. Prove it. Just prove it.
What's Ancestry, 39 something?
Yeah, I think it's
I think it's,
$39.95 now.
$39.95. Yeah.
And
That's
that-
for like the basic package. Like, you can add to search newspapers, but because I have a library card and I can come here and do that, I can search newspapers here.
You can also do I don't know if do you have the military records for Ancestry here too? If
No, I don't. No.
They don't have it here.
Oh, I don't know. Do you have it here?
Because they have a fold 3 that is military records that goes with Ancestry, but you have to pay extra for it, so I don't have it. But once in a while, they have a free weekend, like around Memorial Day and stuff. They'll have a free.
So here we are on the library's website. And if you go to Research and Discovery, it has a list of all of our online resources, and there's a lot. And so we do have one specifically for genealogy that lists the genealogy resources. So here I have a list of free online resources that goes into a little bit more in depth. So, you know, if you're German and you're looking for German ancestry, there's different websites and blogs and wikis that give you information about that. Immigrant ships, about your family coming over through Ellis Island, or the other one I can never remember.
Yeah.
You know, whatever that is.
Castle Garden. Castle Garden.
Castle
Yeah. And different things like that. So these are all open and free, and also listed is the Historical Society. And then we have the pay-for resources. So we have the Ancestry Library Edition, as Heather had mentioned. So this has like all the records in it, but your personal account is like, you don't have one because it's through the library. So doing that person-to-person search, or like the DNA search, or like finding your aunt and uncle and messaging them, or, you know, however that goes, that part is locked down. But what you can do is just search all the
Search.
records. So you have access to all of that.
And obituaries.
Yes, and some military records. There's hundreds of books that have been scanned and added. So just a ton of stuff.
Which one is that in?
This one is
The
in Ancestry,
The top one.
the library edition. So it's still very much worth it to meet with Heather and Dixie, because they have, you know, more
Cool.
in-depth tools and things like that. That could still help you, but this one is free. You do have to use, well, it's free because the library subscribes to it. You do have to use it on site. So you have to come here and use one of our computers or our Wi-Fi.
Yep.
And then you can use it. We do have a class from a few years ago that I led So if you want some tips on getting started using this resource, there's that class that's on YouTube that you can watch, and then there's a help website here as well. Another resource is Heritage Quest. This is provided through the state, through BadgerLink, and it's like Ancestry. There is a lot of overlap with census records and things like that. Sometimes it's helpful to use Heritage Quest even for things that are in Ancestry, because they had a different group of people transcribe the census records. So you might get a different spelling, because the handwriting was, I like your theory about
No,
the,
yeah.
the drink and
I
a
totally, I totally think it's
the
right.
handwriting is definitely difficult to read. So Heritage Quest is here. And then another resource that is made available through BadgerLink and the Wisconsin Historical Society is the Family History Records. And so this is some public access to Wisconsin records that the Historical Society is free and open to everybody, but they have to provide some sort of authentication because it's only for Wisconsin residents. So you can access some of those here online. And then of course everything is at the downtown Wisconsin Historical
Library,
Society
yeah.
building for more details.
Could we make an assumption that most states would have a family history records slot?
Probably.
I would
You
think.
probably could make that assumption. But of course every state is different, and Wisconsin is truly blessed with our libraries and our library systems. It's written into state law for funding and things like that. So we have a really amazing set of libraries and historical societies. So they're not all as good as we are. The other thing I'll mention here is newspapers. We have a page of resources where you can look at newspapers. Some are free online and some are paid for. One thing that we have here is the newspaper index. So staff at the library have been indexing obituaries. We have some from olden days, but we're still working through the Oregon Observer. But we pretty much have almost every obituary indexed from 1963 to present day. So if somebody died between 1963 and last Thursday, and it was in the Oregon Observer, it should be in the index. And then the index will tell you what issue of the newspaper to look at for the obituary.
And if you want to see a paper copy of it, we have all of the observers at the museum.
Yes, they have all the observers,
back to
and we have the
1880 something.
microfilm.
1880 something.
Yeah, we have the microfilm going back that far as well. So that's that. So those are our library resources.
So touching back on your question about asking the state historical societies or state family historical places, I can't say anything for other states. I'm from Florida, so when I was looking for stuff, I went to the Orange County Library. Like my mother's family is from Orange County, Florida. So I went to the Orange County Library because I didn't know about Fort Christmas at the time. Weird, I don't know. But in order to find obituaries and stuff like that for my grandparents, my great-grandparents and all, I asked them, and for a small fee, they will do that. Not every library will do that, but that one, they did. I know other people have reached out to libraries and asked them if they can't get anything from the Historical Society, or if you can't find a Historical Society in the area that you know your family is from.
I did that in Ohio too. It was good.
Libraries are very good resources.
Kind of off topic, but where do you park when you go to the historical library in Madison?
I park at the Lake Street ramp
Lake Street ramp?
because it's just around the corner then,
Lake Street, or off season when there's no kids, the Helen C. White, yeah, thank you, Helen C. White Library underneath there.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
when the students aren't there, it's empty. Any other questions?
Anybody want to share what they're looking for?
Well, when you go across the ocean, you got a whole different ballgame.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Which country?
Norway.
Oh, well, I've done some research on Norway.
I've got family over there that is doing a lot of research. So I'm hoping that I can pick up when they came here
Mm-hmm.
and supply that set of information to him.
And
Right.
Then, yeah. Mm-hmm.
'Cause it
Finding the
goes way
ship.
back, way back.
Have you been to the, trying to think the name of it, Nassif Library in Madison?
The what?
It's on Main Street, I think. Is it
Main
Nassif? No. But the main library has all the big books in it from Norway. I thought that, in Vernon County, we have the, oh gosh, I can't think of the name of the town. But anyway, we have all those big books, and I thought, well, I thought that's all there was. But there's big books from all over Norway, and they're all at the Madison Public Library.
Because he's saying apparently we go back to 800 AD.
Wow.
Wow.
Some,
What part of Norway?
Stavanger,
Oh, I was just there,
yeah,
like a month ago.
yeah.
You two should talk.
You might be related.
If you go back far enough in Norway, I think everybody's related.
True.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. And
My
there's,
grandpa and grandma were gonna come, they went over to Norway so that they could meet grandma when they got married.
uh-huh,
And they were gonna bring what's the ship that went down?
Titanic?
Titanic.
Yes, they were gonna bring that back to the United States.
Oh.
And his mother said to him, I have a bad feeling, book a different route.
Wow,
And he did, or I wouldn't be here.
isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, wow.
And there's actually a book written about that one of the cousins had. I gotta get a hold of that.
But there's online Norwegian genealogy where you can find church records and things like that, and census, and I just can't think of what it's called right now.
I don't have Norwegian people. we like to dig holes. That's what
think of
Cornish
it.
people do.
It's not in there, no, that's military.
When we went to Ellis Island, our oldest daughter's Jessica Elise, and we named her Elise after a friend of ours. And when on one of the plaques on the path to Ellis Island, and there was an Elise Wilkening.
Really?
Who came over in the 1800s.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wow.
neat.
It's something that I've always been curious about, because that's kind of a strange.
Yeah, it's
name,
not
you
your
know.
normal, yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
Neat. Huh.
Never know what you might find.
So yeah, so if you're a member of the Oregon Area Historical Society, you can get a free hour with us. If you're not a member, you can join today, or whenever. You can join whenever. We'll take your money. It's all good.
We always have
So
snacks.
we
Yes,
do.
you do, yeah.
We do like to have snacks on Tuesdays.
Yes,
That's how we get
Tuesday.
through the day. But yeah, just come down and see us. We're open
If
on
you drop by on a
Tuesdays.
Tuesday too, I'll make sure and have that
Okay.
information.
Right.
I'll look
Yeah.
it up so I have it by Tuesday. so.
Yeah, so we're open on Tuesdays from 10 to 3, and the first Saturday of the month from
on-
9 to
on
noon.
Lincoln.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah. Thanks for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
You're welcome.
This will be an interesting quest.
Yes,
Well,
definitely.
good luck with your
It always
series.
is.
Well, I'm just kind of trying to keep it going. I think most of the major searching is done for me.
Well, even though I have the 2 brick walls, I have like 3,300 people on my, so, I mean, I've had a lot of pluses. But the ones that are the brick walls, will just drive you nuts.
Yeah.
Ugh.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.